What the hell is this? This is a film that I watched last night. It is called Zombie Flesh Eaters, otherwise known as Zombie 2, or just Zombie, with an I. And I didn't like it that much. Now, I'm not here to press a bad review on the film. Doesn't matter. I kind of want to explore this idea of films, particularly cult classics, I guess you could pin it down to, that are arguably over-reviewed to the point of people being like, yeah, this is a masterpiece, when it's like, might not be. Now look, this realistically just boils down to a personal taste. Do you like this film? Yes, no? Okay, you do? Great. You know, maybe you like, in this case, specific subgenres of films, in this case, overly gory, giallo-esque zombie horror films. I say giallo, but that's more or less in the terms of kind of like the spaghetti western-ish, where it's Italian, and it's kind of like overdubbed and stuff. But that's its own kind of like element of how it's made. It doesn't make it cheesy, doesn't not make it cheesy, it's kind of, all that kind of jazz. It's not really a giallo film. Giallo's fucking murder films. This is zombies. This ain't giallo, but I just want to call it that, even though it's not. I know what I'm saying, people. But I watched the film last night because my girlfriend, she wanted to watch a horror film that she'd never seen before, and I was like, look, there's this film, Zombie Flesh Eaters. I've been meaning to watch it for a few weeks now because I want to see if I should get the 4K UHD. And I'd heard fantastic things. Everyone calling it a fucking masterpiece, you know. It's a masterpiece of zombie horror. It's brutal, it's gory, it's fantastic. And I'm like, great. This sounds perfect, right up my alley. You know, I love these kind of films. Even if they're cheesy as hell, if there's something to laugh at, then that's great, you know. It adds to the enjoyment factor of the film. So we watched it, and it was really, really dull. And I hate that I have to say that, because even I logged my reviews into Letterboxd and I gave it 2.5 stars, and that was mostly just due to the acting, for the most part, from some of the actors, and I think it was like Brendan Johnson, or what was his name? Oh, Richard Johnson in the film, I thought was really good. But the film benefits from, the gore factor, the practical effects, fantastic. And some of the scenarios are arguably iconic, like the whole idea of a boat arriving in New York and it has a zombie on it. And that zombie doesn't get killed, but bites a guy and then falls into the water, and then maybe something plague-wise happens in New York, of course. Get to the end of the film, and yes, that is the case. But and there's a lot of elements that go into the film. The fact that it was, you know, a sequel to Dawn of the Dead, because, you know, when Dawn of the Dead was released in Italy, recut by Argento, it was known as Zombie. So it's like, there's a lot that goes into how the film came to be, and then what the film actually is. So it's like, it's one of those films that has so much going into it that's like, sounds fantastic, you know? And then you got all these people saying it's got great blood effects, great gore effects, great zombies, everything about it's fantastic in that regard. And I'm like, that's fantastic. I'm keen to watch it. Nothing happens. It's one of those films that's just like, it's clearly so fucking low budget that they just took all their time for the first hour to just stretch everything out. But instead of using it for time to have dialogue between characters or do anything of note, it's just, here the characters are, and they're going from the first boat, and then they go to the second boat, and then on the second boat they meet 2 more characters. All we know about them is that they're on holiday. There. That's your character arc. They're on holiday. At least the main 2 characters have something more going to them. One's a reporter, who thinks there's something fishy going around that the police are covering up, and the other one's the daughter of the professor whose boat it is, who he has gone missing. Where is he? They track him down to an island, but before they get to the island, the girl goes for a dive in the water without her shirt on, because nudity, And then she runs away from a shark, which isn't terrifying at all, because it's genuinely isn't terrifying. The amount of people I've read who reviewed this film saying that, oh, that shark sequence is incredible. I'm like, bitch, she's just fucking swimming with a shark. This ain't no great white. It's just a fucking bull shark or something. This ain't something. It would probably attack you, sure, but this shark does not appear threatening at all. Like, it's just swimming there, you know? It's not attacking the cameraman, and it ain't attacking her. So she's overreacting to it. The fun part about that sequence is when she discovers a zombie under the reef. That's cool. Nothing comes of it. It's like one of those things of like, here's an interesting idea. What if we had a zombie underwater, and then it scares off the girl, and then when she gets on the boat, she mentions that there was someone down there, but before that happens, wait, no, hold on. The zombie fights a shark. That's iconic. And to be fair, that's kind of iconic, actually. But it's really cheesily done, and it just seems really fucking cheap. Like, the dude's just swimming with a shark and hugging it and pretending to bite it, and then just pretending to rip its flesh off and have all these blood pouches explode, which is clearly fake blood, because otherwise the shark might go insane. And it's like, cool, okay, nice idea, poor execution. Probably down to low budget, that's okay. But then the woman gets back on the boat, and she's like, there was a person down there. Cut to, we're on the island. Again, we've already set up the island a few times by setting up the doctor on the island with his wife, and how the guys are using voodoo. We never see anyone use voodoo in the film. They just stipulate, oh, there might be voodoo happening here, and it's causing the dead to rise from the graves. So I don't want to recap the film, but like, it takes forever for anything to happen. Even when they get to the island, you get your exposition dumps about the voodoo, and then what happened to the father, and then it's pretty much when they get sent off from the doctor at the hospital to go find his wife and discover her having been brutally murdered and eaten by zombies, which is fun. Her murder scene is really cool. It's really boring, but it's creepy, but it's boring. Like, it starts with her in the shower, and you're like, oh, okay, there's a woman in the shower. And then, after a minute of staring at her in the shower, a zombie appears at the window. You just get to see a hand clawing at it. It's like, start with the zombie. Tell us that there's danger, and we know we should be scared for her because she's in her most vulnerable state, being naked. And she gets out of the shower and she gets dressed, and then she hears of something, and she closes the doors, and she goes to the bedroom to run away, and then a zombie breaks through the doors because they're like wooden blinds, and it stabs her face in the bloody piece of wood, which again, great effect, but it takes so long to get to there. Like, there's so many people I've seen review this film saying how it has great atmosphere and great tension, and I'm like, but it doesn't. It's like, maybe, yeah, sure it does, but it's like, it's so boring that it's like, it takes too long to, like, there's no suspense there. Just because it's long fucking scenes of nothing happening doesn't mean it's suspenseful. It's just boring. Like, there's no content. Like, the music can be terrible in this fucking movie. It's not always bad. It's just, this is the music you go for, and half the scenes don't even have music, and the ones that do, that really fucking need it, don't even utilize it. And then when they do, it's like, there's one particular part where they have this chanting in the background, and it's just a part of the soundtrack, but like, it's while they're on the island, and then the main characters, when they hear that later, they're like, oh, there must be chanting going on, and they go to find where it's coming from, and they don't, because there isn't actually any fucking chanting happening. It's like they can hear the soundtrack of the film. But they go, they find her, they run away. That's when they hear the chanting, go through the woods, and they find the graveyard. From that graveyard point onwards, the film is fantastic. Like, it's, one of the reviews I read was saying, I didn't rely on the reviews before I watched this film. All I'd heard were good things, and then after I watched it, I was like, how is this film a masterpiece? And all the people giving it bad reviews, like 1 star, which I thought was way too low, saying like, skip the first hour, because realistically it's completely bloody boring, and skip the last half an hour of this 90-minute feature, where you get to, they're in the graveyard, and the graveyard is fantastic. The gore effects, the zombies there, brilliant. Completely unrealistic for the zombies be, like, from conquistadors, the Spanish fucking dudes, to be buried 1 foot below the ground. That's unrealistic as heck. But I like how they still had them buried in the ground and then had them rise up. That was cool. I liked that. it was fun. And the gore effects and that chick who gets her throat ripped out, brilliant. Brilliant stuff. And then the whole stuff at the hospital, all that, it's great. I loved watching it. It was so fun, except for the consistent repeated Molotov shots. That was clearly just the same shot put into the film consistently, or maybe it was done a second take, but it was like the continuity editing was terrible in that part, because it was clearly like while the zombies are progressing in one shot, you get to another Molotov thrown, and it's clear the zombies are now back at the door. So it's like, but they've already come in halfway throughout this building. What the hell's going on? So, yeah, the continuity was terrible. I think overall the script for this film is fucking atrocious. I mean, the dialogue wasn't great anyway, but like the way that they've actually paced things out, it's just they just tried to make it as cheap as possible. It was probably going to be a 70-minute film, and even a 60-minute film, I could imagine, and they just stretched the whole first hour out as long as they could. And it's so dull. But it's that kind of thing where you get this film that's considered a cult classic. It's a fucking masterpiece. Balls to the wall, this is the fucking shit. If you love this genre, you will love this type of film. And maybe it's the type of film that I would love if I was more into Italian zombie films. But this makes me feel bad that Italian zombie films are going to be like this. If Italian zombie films are all fucking like Zombie 2, then fuck, that's bad. Like, from my own personal preference, again, this is me and both my girlfriend, who almost fucking fell asleep during the film because she was so bored of it. And she was not expecting to be bored of it. We were both commenting, like, within the first 20 minutes, like, is anything going to happen in this film? Nothing's happening. Like, it's happening, but nothing's happening, you know? Like, you have these scenes that are relevant, sets up characters, sets up the motivations, sets up whatever the fuck you need to do, and then it just takes so long for anything to happen. Like, I was expecting, in some facet of this way, for it to be like, they find the bodies, they go to the island, they do the whole island shit, and then they go back to New York, and they find it overrun by zombies. And it's exactly what I expected it to be, but it's, the whole part of them going to the island is 60 minutes long. Actually, I'd say it's about 45 minutes. The first 15 minutes is like everything else being set up. And then the next half an hour is, well, maybe, let's say the next 25 minutes is the big zombie ambush attack. Still a great sequence. Not amazing because of how it was edited, but fun. And then the last 2 minutes is, on the radio you find out that, New York's been invaded by zombies. And it's like, so that thing they set up at the start of the film, this is the payoff. It's like, I expected that, because the whole time I was watching it thinking, what happened to that doctor's office with that zombie? What happened to the zombie that fell in the water but didn't fucking die because they didn't shoot in the head? It's just, if that's the interesting stuff of what's going to happen to New York, why the fuck did they cut away? And to be fair, the whole idea of it being on an island, a tropical island, having the voodoo stuff, it's interesting, it's unique. But then having set up bigger, more interesting things takes away from that for me. So it's just, I don't know. It was a disappointing film. I didn't want to make this a review. Like, it still comes down for me to be this kind of an element of, some of these cult films are overly reviewed, really highly positively by a lot of people. Like, if the majority of people on Letterboxd are giving this film 4 to 5 stars, I'm the one questioning, what the fuck is going on? So, I don't know, it's hard to kind of dive into it, because I probably have films that are the same that I will absolutely adore that other people will say are fucking pieces of shit. So the understanding that it's subjective. Yes, I get it. Opinions are subjective, but I only know one other person who watched this film and they didn't care that much for it. I feel like there's an element to it that I'm really not getting, and I think the aspect of it that I'm not getting is the whole video nasty element. This whole idea that it's so overly glorified, there's like unnecessary nudity, all the kind of tropes that make this film what it is, and it's something that's iconic for it. Again, there's an opening interview that says how like this film potentially may have saved the Italian film industry. Cool, I guess. That's an interesting detail. And like even the artwork is exceptional. The image, the most famous image, that one, of the zombie's eye, that is an incredible shot. And like as an overall, even like this, the alternative cover that they have for our video with that, they even have the shark in there and everything. Like, there's a lot to this film that I feel like was just completely over talked about. Like, not over talked about. What the fuck do you call it? I feel like overhyped is the best way to define it. Like, it's not very often that I will find a film that, again, I go on Letterboxd, it has 1.7k 5-star reviews, 1.4k 4.5, 4.7k 4-star reviews. Like, it's clear that these people are looking at it like, this is a fantastic video nasty. Someone I follow gave it 5 stars, said that this film was a masterpiece, and I'm looking at it like, how? How? I don't get it. I just don't understand it. And it's just, it's so frustrating for me. Someone who, I love fucking movie. I love shit like this. I love this kind of movie. And I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it. I just thought it was so boring and dull. And I'm like, I'm not going to rewatch this shit. If somebody asks, hey, let's watch Zombie Flesh Eaters, I'll be like, skip to the last half an hour. That's all you need to watch. They'll be like, what about the rest of it? I'll be like, read the back of the DVD and then watch the last half an hour. Because trust me, the rest of it's boring as hell. You know, like, also the fact that everyone, you know, so many people with their reviews, oh, look at me, is it Zombie 2? Is it Zombie? Is it Zombie Flesh Eaters? Whoa, I don't know. Oh, who fucking cares, dude? It's just the name of the movie. Fucking hell, it's like people don't know what Italian movies are like. This is what happens in the movie industry. They keep changing the fucking names. So, this person says, you know, Lucio Fulci's Zombie Flesh Eaters is perfect in every way. That is undeniable. Fulci's zombie movies with his one-of-a-kind directing style. If this is what all these movies are like, I'm never going to watch one of his movies again. I'm sorry, but come on. Really managed to distance themselves from Romero's work and be their own thing. That is true. Definitely distinctly different to Romero. I don't think that makes it better. I just think that makes it worse. But Zombie 2 isn't just another Italian sequel to an American movie made to cash off of the success of that film. It is much more than that. And this person prefers Zombie Flesh Eaters to Dawn of the Dead, which I feel like it's overrated. Is it underrated? What the fuck is the word I'm looking for? Overrated is what I think that Dawn of the Dead is. Maybe I think this film's overrated. That's a good way to praise it. I think Zombie Flesh Eaters is overrated. I think Dawn of the Dead is somewhat overrated, but I do like Dawn of the Dead. I've seen it twice now. I enjoy it. I think it's fun. I don't think it's a brilliant film. I think it's really fun, though, in terms of like its technical craft and stuff like that, and the idea behind it, the whole mall setting. So much of it is great, but I actually, if I'm going to look at zombie films, prefer Day of the Dead. I love Day of the Dead. So, I even prefer Zombie Flesh Eaters to Dawn of the Dead in many ways, and on most days would probably consider it my favourite of the two, marginally. The style and tone of this film is very different to stuff that Romero did. This is straight horror and doesn't mess around. Doesn't mess around. Nothing happens for 40 fucking minutes. Anyway, I get it, we don't need to have constant zombie attacks and shit, but like, have the characters develop and talk and shit. It's just so much wasted time. The Caribbean setting is totally unique, I agree, and Fabio Frizzi's score is utterly chilling. It's kind of zany, you know. I don't like it that much because the chanting stuff for the voodoo, I don't know why the hell that was there, because like there's no in-film context for it. Like, I mean, there technically is, especially that one scene where they mention that they can hear the chanting, but I'm like, but it's the same chanting we heard earlier in the film, so does that mean that our other character heard it but just ignored it and just didn't say anything about it? I don't know. But also, a lot of the soundtrack was just, I didn't like it. Nope. It's dull. The acting is great. Yeah, I could say the acting is great. The dubbing isn't perfect, but the acting is pretty good. And the gore is unforgettable. That's definitely the most obvious thing about this film. The gore is immaculate. Even my girlfriend, she loved the gore effects in this film, but she hated the rest of it. It holds up, I can't say hate, but disliked it, you know. It holds up so well all these years later, despite some practical effects that would have been tricky to pull off. For instance, the infamous eye gouging scene, where the woman has a... The eye gouging scene, I think, went for a few seconds too long when they had a punch into her eye and just kind of split offwards. Like, it seemed too much like a puppet there, but the rest of it was really good, especially how they cut it to the front-on angle, and it showed her practically having this thing stuck out of her eye. I thought that was a clever trick. Instead of just having it stab in the eye, cut away, it's stab in the eye, cut to a different angle. Sells the realism of it. I liked it. That was fun. The undead are terrifying. I mean, I guess, but how many times do you have to watch a zombie film and be like, bitch, just walk the fuck away from it. It won't kill you if you keep walking from it. They slowly shuffle, towards their victims, never stopping, never growing tired. Yeah, because they're zombies. Underpinned by the frizzy score, and you have some damn memorable imagery and intense scenes throughout. Sequences throughout. I don't agree there. I didn't see any tension in it. It just didn't seem... Maybe it's because it's all in the daylight. I don't know. It just seemed dull. Many scenes in this film are unforgettable. For example, when the zombies rise from their graves at the old Spanish cemetery. Yes, that's a fucking great scene. Also, the ending showdown in the church. Yeah, because this is all the end. The last half an hour is great, as well as the final few shots. Well, yeah, of course, because it's the end of the film. One of the greatest film endings ever. I mean, I could argue that it's a good example of a good film ending where they've gone on this adventure, like they've survived it, but then their friend has now turned into a zombie in their bathroom in the boat, and they just found out on the radio that New York has been surrounded by zombies, and actually the final shot, is the zombies on the bridge. It doesn't completely sell you when you have all these cars still driving there, but it's a great idea and a great image, so that's pretty neat. The look of the zombies is unmatched anywhere else. They're slimy and revolting and just look like they're decaying right in front of your eyes. I agree with that. That's a good observation. But they keep on shuffling towards the next targets, despite them losing limbs along the way due to the rot. I wouldn't really pin that as a thing. They don't really lose their limbs. Like the zombie who gets attacked by a shark does, sure, because it bites its arm off. Their arms aren't falling off in front of them. At least I'm not. You could argue that in the final, the flaming sequence, one of their arms does fall off, but it's because it was burning off. Like, they're not just naturally falling off. Like, they're not. Unfortunately. Bit too much praise there. As I said earlier, the unique Caribbean setting really makes this film something special. I don't often see a location like this being used this effectively. It's just really great to have a zombie film largely set on some tropical island. It's nice. It's not completely well utilized, I don't think, just because they don't spend too much time on the actual island itself. Like, so much of the time is spent on the boat, where nothing fucking happens, or in New York, where too much is set up and nothing really is paid off. Like, it's paid off, I guess, at the end, I get it, but it's like, it sets up a great ending, but it tries too hard to set up a great ending, try to be more subtle with it and stuff. Actually, they are more subtle. It's just, they spend so much time with the characters and it's so boring. And especially, I can admit, too, after watching it, seeing all this setup of the characters, I'm like, it's so unnecessary because there's no fucking payoff. Like, the only payoff you get is the reporter can't do shit because his fucking boss is probably dead by the end of the film. But the main character, if she is the main character, she ain't the fucking main character. The girl whose dad was the professor, she finds out what happens to him when she gets on the island, and that's it. She has nothing else to do in this film. She's just there for the ride. Like the rest of them are. The two that are on holiday need to get a new thing for their boat, and that's it. So, it's just... Overall, Lucio Fulci's Zombie Flesh Eaters is a masterpiece, and one of my favourite all-time films now. It's probably my second favourite film, just behind Romero's Day of the Dead. Hey, this guy has taste! If you want to watch a good horror film, I highly recommend this. I do not. If you want to see this kind of video nasty, classic zombie film, sure. It's right up that alley. But in terms of it being a masterpiece, so many people say that. I just don't agree, and it sucks. I don't want to be that person who's like, hey, but it's also like, look, I'm going to be realistic about my point of view from this film. I don't think it's that great. I think it's exceptionally overrated, but it does have some great effects, and a final sequence, like the final half, the whole last third of the film is fun as hell. Probably from when the wife gets killed in her bathroom to the end of the film. But unfortunately, starting with that scene, it's really dull. It's, again, such a dull and boring way to kill off a character. A great way of killing her, sure, with stabbing her in the eye, but it just takes so long for anything to happen. I don't know. Look, if you guys have any thoughts on this outside of disliking the video because I don't fucking like this film that much, what do you think could help to convince me into a film like this? Like, why is it so beloved by other people and I just don't see it. Like, I'm not trying to look at it like everyone else is like trying to find a consensus where most people from the looks of it seem to like this film. Those people who have sought out this film, who've heard so many classic things about it, are like, this is an iconic film, I'm going to go watch it. And then they're like, oh, it's boring. Wonderful. Like, I can understand someone saying that for 2001: A Space Odyssey, because it's like, it's a long, slow-paced film, but everything is so vital and necessary. And just, except for probably the Dawn of the Apes part, that was like, really long. Like, really fucking long. But still, this just, I don't know. Look, what do you think? Do you have any opinion on this film? If you've seen it, do you care to, you know, shed some light as to why you really like it? Like, just try to help me understand why people like it despite its dull story and narrative. And I don't want people to be saying, oh, but tell it, this is what it's like. These are what these, you know, classic films are like. They had terrible scripts, but they had great practical effects and they had boobs. And I'm like, so did the slasher films from the fucking 80s, but even they were fun. They had good characters. They weren't all terrible scripts. Some of them were really great scripts. Some of them were at least mediocre enough to pass off. A lot of the Jason films are like that, but I fucking love them. I don't know. I just didn't love this film. I was very disappointed by it. That's it. That's all I got to say. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Hopefully next time I'll watch a much better film. Jesus Christ. But then again, why would I make a video about a good film that I like? Ha 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 ha. That's a bad idea.